To be honest, I didn't exactly know how this conversation was going to turn out. Although I've known the individual that I've chatted with today for years, probably close to a decade at this point, I'm not sure if I can recall any extent of conversation we've had during that time. Luckily, to say that I enjoyed our conversation is an understatement. As a peripheral figure in the volleyball community, I've been able to see Cassie Bujan play at the high school level, at the university level, and now at the professional level, where she's currently playing in Lugo, Spain. What I didn't know, however, was the journey she took to get there. Told she was too small, she proved those critics wrong by just making the University of Manitoba team, and continued to prove critics wrong as she set an all-time record for digs in a season for Can West, getting an opportunity to play with the national B team, and now playing the game that she loves as a career over in Spain. We discuss this whole journey, plus what her final goal with this sport is and what fuels her to get there. I hope you guys enjoy this. And here is a conversation with Cassie Bujan. I am now joined with someone that, even though they are an alumni of Miles Mac, I'm excited to talk with Cassie Bujan. Cassie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So you are currently in Lugo, Spain, correct?
Yeah.
What part of the country is that in?
The northwestern kind of like tip that like it's right over Portugal.
Oh, okay. And you said that it's kind of a small-ish town?
Yeah, I'd consider it like small, but I think it's like 100,000 people.
Okay. So still city, but
Yeah.
not the
Sorry,
bustling.
I did not mean town.
Yeah, it's not the bustling streets of Madrid or Barcelona kind of thing.
No.
So you're obviously overseas playing professional volleyball, and my first question was, what does a day in the life of a professional volleyball player look like?
So we practice at least once a day. I think twice a week. We practice 2 times in the day, and then we have 3 workouts on top of that. And normally we play on Saturdays with Sundays completely off, which are nice. So with all of that, it kind of lines up that Tuesdays are our long days. So we start with like a 7 a.m. workout, and then we go pretty much straight to practice, a break, and then another practice later. So like some days are definitely busier than others.
And you're saying beforehand, we were just chatting a little bit that, so you have all this time, but in a lot of ways, you have a lot of time for yourself. So what have you been doing to fill the time when you're not around the team?
I have definitely been watching Netflix.
Yep.
Quite often, especially in the beginning when honestly I was just exhausted, wasn't used to the whole rhythm yet.
Yeah.
Especially after being off for so long. We like our town here, city is pretty old, but it's got a lot of neat like parks, and this Roman wall that like surrounds the center of our city. It's apparently the only one left fully standing in Spain, which is actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to just check out. And there's also like on my team, I have an American girl, and there's also a men's team here. So there's an American and a Canadian on that team as well. So I do actually contact them like quite often, and between the 4 of us, like we talk as much as possible to hang out.
Yeah. What's the city, the situation in terms of like the pandemic? Are things open? Are they kind of restricted?
So within like the last week, things have kind of been like getting more and more restrictive. In our city, it's not that bad. But the government of like Spain in general is taking things really seriously. So our, I guess you can say province or state is actually one of the better ones in Spain, but it's still, as of Saturday, I think we are no longer allowed to go to bars, restaurants, even cafes are closed. And we've got a curfew, like 11 p.m. curfew. Technically, we're not supposed to be around people outside of our household or in groups bigger than 5.
Yeah.
So with sports, we just have to be careful with kind of who we're talking to or like where we go, because people don't know that we play sports, like play volleyball here. So we just have to be wearing the same gear kind of thing. So it's obvious.
Yeah.
But,
no kidding. Yeah, that's I wish we were at that point still, but obviously we are not now. So there's a whole lot of we got a lot of adjusting to do back home here. I think where I wanted to kind of take the conversation was you obviously had a really great career at University of Manitoba. What was your thought process in joining U of M at the time when I believe was there libero 3rd year or 4th year?
My first year, she was a 3rd year.
So you were coming into a situation with an established player ahead of you in your position. What was your mindset going into the first couple of years there at U of
M? I actually got, I guess, an invitation to the team very late. So it was like midway, like summer before the season started.
Oh, wow.
So for me, like, I was just super excited to be a part of it. When I first showed up, it was just a big deal to like be there, you know. I expected nothing. I just was there to enjoy the game and like learn, get better as I could. And then I guess it just kind of, the love for the sport really kind of just took over, I guess, for like wanting to do better.
Was there a point within those first couple of years that you thought like, okay, I belong here, like this is something I do very well?
Yes, but it was also just like the teammates that I had. Like they were like the captains that we had. Like I started with, I think, Britt Having and Rachel Cockrell. And then it slowly moved on to the 3rd years at the time when I started. And I grew a really strong connection with the libero actually over me, Kaylee Doby. And honestly, like everything that between the two of us that we had kind of worked together on, I slowly became like closer to her level. And then that's where it was kind of like, okay, this like makes sense to me. And I think like the drive was just there to like constantly be better and like for the team purposes, not even for myself.
Was there like a specific part like of the actual game that you made the jump from high school to university and it was like, oh my goodness, this is different?
Service eve.
Fair. I was libero in high school as well, and I do not envy female liberos because I've seen like the movement on some of those serves. I'm like, I would have no chance.
Yeah.
And then obviously after Kaylee graduated, you took over kind of your starting spot, and then at least from the games that I saw, like really took on a kind of a leadership role yourself. What was that transition like for yourself?
So for me, I had good leaders before me and how they handled things. And I've seen leaders that didn't do so great. And the one thing that really kind of stuck with me was like, you have to like follow what you say. Right. So if like I was one putting my body on the court, like 100% all the time, sometimes taking balls that weren't mine or going the extra mile to like make a touch or at least make the effort to. So I think I got respect from my teammates enough to be able to tell them to smarten up or be better, or this is what you have to do, because they respected me knowing I was doing as much as I could. And I was able to accept my own mistakes and not blame others, if that makes sense.
No, and that's been a theme that I've heard from some other people who I've talked to that I would consider like really great leaders, is the fact that they don't ask people to do things that they don't do themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So then, and then you had a really good, fourth and fifth year. Was it the most digs in a season for Can West, or what was the record there?
Yeah, so I got the most digs in a season, as well as the highest digs per set percentage, I guess. For Can West, yeah.
Yeah. So then you go from that, and was it after your fifth year, after your fourth year, that you got your first chance to train with the national team?
After my fifth year.
After your fifth year, and what was that experience like?
Oh, it was surreal. Like, I still remember having, I guess, the interview, like the closing interview, saying whether I made it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I remember it so clearly, and it was just like tears of joy.
Yeah.
Because like, it's just being told I was like kind of just too small for the sport to actually making it to like the highest level in the country is, I don't know. It's hard to put into words.
Yeah, I was going to say still hard to put into words. So then what did that first like training camp entail?
Like the tryouts?
Yeah, like tryouts, or like, because you were, what was the competition you guys were training for, etc.
So the B team, we had, I think it was 2 competitions that were technically supposed to be for our team.
Okay.
So there was the Pan Am Games. I want to say it's the Pan Am Games that was being held in Peru.
Mm-hmm.
And then Colorado Springs in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And they were both in August. And then kind of as we got closer to those days, unfortunately, they became more important in the scheme of like national team. So the A team ended up kind of taking rank there with like a select B team players. But for the most part, it was just practice for the point of like being backup for the A team.
Yeah.
And if something happened to them, then we would be able to like fill the spot.
Yeah, you're on call pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then after that year, you had the experience then of not getting a contract right away.
Mm-hmm.
What was your going through your head for that, last year, when you're trying to stay ready, you're looking for opportunities, and maybe they're not coming your way?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was tough. I mean, I was still in school, so at least I had something to keep me occupied. I talked to like my coach at U of M. So he had me or allowed me to come to his practices when I could make it. As well as my sister plays for U of W. So I did go to a couple of their practices. And then I think it was about once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. Also, I was with my old club coach. Mm-hmm. So I was getting good information kind of from 3 very experienced men in the field of coaching women's volleyball. It was still like hard mentally. Like I pretty much had to keep myself on track because nobody else was doing it for me.
Yeah.
And
like was there at any point in last year, did there come a thought of like, maybe I won't be able to do this?
Oh yeah, like it'll be like week by week. If all of a sudden I go to a practice and it's a like great week, then I'm like, oh, I love this sport. Like I'm gonna be here for the next 10 years playing. And then it takes like 2 practices, and all of a sudden you go home and you're like, that's it, I'm done. Like I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
I can't do it. And like, but it's just like a mental, like you got to find the love of the sport again. And I find that's just kind of where it clicks and like comes back, and you're like, okay, relax.
And what point of the year did you start getting at least interest maybe from overseas, that okay, like I there's a reassurance that I'm gonna have a chance to play somewhere?
Ooh, I think that was actually later, or like midway through the year.
Okay.
Or this year, I guess. Because I was still busy with school, and then I was hoping to obviously go back to Team Canada for the summer. And then once that got canceled, then I started kind of, okay, I need to do this. Like I either need to, because if I don't, it's going to be so much harder to come back. So I think it was April or May, maybe I got like my first bit of interest. And then not until beginning of August did I sign. So
a hectic summer in terms of trying to plan for this coming year.
Yeah.
And now, obviously, beginning out your professional journey, we talked again briefly just before this that you're now thrust into a leadership role on a new team in a completely like new culture. So what's that been like?
Stressful. The biggest thing is the language barrier. There's some players that speak very good English, and some that don't speak anything, or they're learning now. And it's also very tough with a coach that doesn't speak English, especially when he's talking. Like Spanish can be very quick, and he talks very fast. So the understanding part has been difficult. It, like for me personally, it, like I just had like a tough week or last week I think it was, and I just had to sit down. We sat down with like the coach and like some of the like club executives and just kind of cleared everything up, and it was just like a big relief. But otherwise, like they're just very young, like players. So they don't really have the volleyball like IQ yet, is kind of what we call it. Obviously, you understand. We're just like knowing when you can't make an error, when you can maybe take a chance. So that's been kind of difficult coming from like at least like the last team I played on. But I mean, we're like working through it, and I have obviously my American friend. She is my age as well. And so between the two of us, we're kind of like wrapping the girls into like steady volleyball, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Say. No, absolutely. And as a side note, how's your Spanish coming?
It's okay. Slowly but surely, it's like more words than actually like phrases.
Yeah. Do they, in terms of like actual volleyball terminology, are they using Spanish or are they using English?
Spanish.
Okay. Yeah, that's one thing I know in basketball. The world's kind of gone to like English terminology, so it'll be like I know players or like buddies that have played overseas, and their coach will like string together phrases in whatever native language they're speaking, and then use English, like the English terminology, so they don't basically like, okay, I can disregard everything that they just said, and then I just focus on like the 3 words that I know. Kind of last thing.
It's all Spanish.
The last thing, and this was, I think I asked you this in like spring or something, but your eventual goal is to become an Olympic athlete, to play with the senior A team, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So what's, I guess not even necessarily like the steps that are needed to take, but what fuels you to hold such a, for lack of a better word, such an audacious goal?
Like for the longest time, it's always like I've slowly just like got better, obviously, and like better and better, and just because I've loved the game so much. And the drive for that kind of just came from like a bit of a younger age, being told like I was too short and I wouldn't go anywhere in the sport that I loved.
Yeah.
So for me, it was, I thought it was just going to be a bitter end at some point. So for me, like actually like every like goal I've achieved or step I've kind of taken or accomplished has just been like adding to, like, I guess your volleyball resume. So it's, I don't know, like I just love the sport so much, and like especially getting a glimpse of my potential future with the B team, it was like everything I kind of wanted. And I played a couple times with the A team in the absence of one of the other liberos above me, and it was just like the level is just insane, and like that's something I want to be a part of.
And you got a taste of it, and now you want more, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Last question, and this would be, it's a kind of a cliched question, but you have the chance to say just one thing to, let's say, a 15-year-old girl that's trying to pursue what you're doing now. What's that one thing?
Well, for me, it was, don't let anybody tell you you can't. Right? You're in charge of your own self, and like hard work beats, well, I was always told hard work beats talent, but or beats height, sorry.
Okay. Yeah. No, so. Love that. That's a great answer. Well, I'm going to let you get on with your day there, Cassie. I appreciated talking to you and catching up.
Yeah,
and again,
you too.
I don't hold it against you that you're a Miles Mack alumni.
What can I say?
Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.